On this video, we're going to compare two TVs. The first thing we're going to do is just take a look at the design in the back of these TVs. 8000F is a lot thinner television in compared to the Q7F. Now, both TVs can be mounted on the wall with the little screw holes, but let's take a look at the inputs. When it comes to the 8000, we have two USBs, Ethernet input, and three HDMI inputs. Plus, you have a fiber optic output and a TV tuner. Now, the feet on this TV can be raised up and down, but the TV doesn't have those center mounts, so you have to raise it, lower it, but you have to make sure that it fits your stand. Now, when it comes to the Q7F, this TV, again, can be mounted on the wall. And as far as the inputs, it lacks a little bit that the U8000F has. For example, we have only one USB. And then as we go farther down here, we have three HDMIs. We have an Ethernet connection, and we do have a TV tuner right there, but this TV does not have fiber optic output. Now, what makes it unique is that it does have two mounting positions. So for example, you can raise it up and down right here, but it has a center mount as well. So you can easily put that on a smaller stand compared to the U8000F. So that's the back of the TVs. Let's go ahead and get them turned around so we can start comparing them. Now, we'll have both TVs in movie mode, but keep in mind the U8000F had to do an update, so it's going over to the new One UI interface. So that's a good thing that you are going to be able to get that newest and greatest update. All right, we're going to do a few demos. We're going to start off with some SDR content. And just so you know, I'm using Apple TV so I can control both TVs at the same time. First thing I'm going to do is go ahead and turn off the light so we can get a better picture on both televisions. And currently both TVs are in standard mode with brightness at 100%. So first thing we're going to take a look at is some football games here. And one thing I noticed is that it looks like the U8000F has a little bit better colors in it. If you notice, look at the grass. Right here in this area, I'm seeing a lot more details in the grass. And this is very interesting because the Q7F is a QLED television, so it should have more colors than the 8000F. So let's go back and see what's on. And here's another scene, but one thing I want you to pay attention to is look at that background. Which one is more accurate? It appears that the Q7F has a lot more blue tint right here. Again, these are factory settings. You can always adjust them. Where this looks a little bit more natural to me. But I would say that the Q7F, I do like the dirt on this particular scene a lot better. And I can see a lot more highlights in the background than I can see on the U8000F. And this is where you can definitely see the QLED kick in, because the colors pop more on the Q7F. So it seems like scene to scene, each TV has a different type of look to it. But when it comes to greens, I think I'd like the U8000F better. It just looks a lot more natural in this setting. Another thing I want you to know is that when it comes to the Q7F, you can use your smart device to do what they call smart calibration. And the thing is that you might see calibrated on movie mode, but I did go in here and removed all the presets. So for some reason, once you calibrate it, you can't get rid of that word on the screen. But with that being said, let's switch back over to movie mode on both of these TVs. And while I'm factory resetting these again, I will tell you that the Q7F does have a color boost, and that's going to be turned off as well. And the picture settings have been reset back to factory, but you will see that calibration piece pop back up from time to time. Now we're on YouTube. Again, both TVs are in movie mode now. After the update, it seems like the Q7F just looks a lot more natural than the U8000F. Now, I'm not sure if it's the way Samsung wants it or if there's something different going on. And it's hard to determine how TVs look unless you put them side by side and do a lot of recordings. But right now, the Q7F is definitely doing a lot better job. But I will tell you that on either TVs, you're gonna have great colors, but you're gonna be able to see the backlights. If I crank up the ISO on my camera, you can definitely see a difference there. If you look at the U8000F right on this area and the Q7F in this area, you can see the backlights on the 8000 are definitely going to be a lot more brighter, so you're not going to get as good as contrast. Neither one of these TVs do have local dimming zones. They use Samsung's Supreme Dimming. You can definitely see if you had a full array local dimming television that you're going to get better results, but people love the Samsung brand. Now pulled up Disney Plus, and this is some clips from the movie Black Panther. And let's go ahead and pause it here for a second. And now we can take a look at the different picture profiles. And this is the brightest the TVs can get. They're in 100% brightness. And this is what dynamic mode looks like. You can definitely see the brightness coming in a lot more on that Q7F, and you're supposed to because it is more expensive TV. And here we have standard mode. Again, it's still kind of bright on both TVs. And I wish this actually went down to the bottom of the screen because it's kind of cutting off what we need to see here. This is the eco mode on both televisions, and both TVs do have filmmakers mode. The Q7F is definitely worth spending extra money. Now, I don't have the Q8F, but I would say that it's going to probably be pretty similar to these two TVs, but it's hard to say unless you have one. Neither of these TVs will support Dolby Vision, but we can put them in what they call HDR10 Plus, which is very similar to Dolby Vision. And one thing I noticed when I switched to HDR, if you look at the U8000F, it actually shows HDR right there. Unless it's on a different screen, I don't see it anywhere here on the U7F. But the cool thing is with the older remote control, I can then pull up the info and it will show it right there. Again, buy yourself one of these $10 remote controls, it's definitely worth it. So here's HDR, this is in dynamic mode, this is in standard mode, eco mode, movie mode, and we have filmmakers mode again. There's no settings like IMAX or anything on these TVs. When I look at these pictures, it just seems like the U7F definitely looks a lot more natural to me. Maybe with a little calibration, you could bring up that U8000F, but keep in mind when you do calibration, it could cost you $250 to $500, so it might not be worth the investment unless you're a purist, but in that case, you're probably buying a more expensive TV. Now I'm going to show you some gaming on these TVs, but keep in mind, both of these TVs are 60 frames per second. But the good news is that most content when it comes to games is 60 frames per second. If you're a hardcore gamer, you probably want to go up to a more expensive model so you can get a TV that's a native 120 Hertz or 144 Hertz so you can get the best experience. But when it comes to 60 Hertz, I think these TVs do just fine for most people. Now, one thing I'll tell you about these TVs is that the U8000F does have a game mode, but it doesn't support a game bar. And if you look at the Q7F, you can see that it has features like virtual aiming point, mini map detection, Game Motion Plus, and when you turn on your gaming console, it will bring up this gaming bar. But if you press and hold the play pause button on the Q7F remote, you do get this little setup right here where you can see all your different settings. At the bottom of it shows you frames per second, HDR, variable refresh rate. So if you're a gamer, you might want to go with this TV just to have this extra feature. Also, both TVs will support 4K gaming. Because I'm going through a switcher, you might not be able to get all these features, but I did make a full review on both televisions. But you can see right here, they support 60 Hertz. And again, Samsung does not support Dolby Vision. And I can't remember, but I know one of these TVs do support variable refresh rate. It's just the selector is keeping the other TV from doing it. Now I'll show you some gaming play on both TVs. Both TVs have really good colors when it comes to gaming. I definitely see a more natural look inside of the Q7F. Like I said, guys, I'm not a big gamer, but I like to play around a little bit. But again, this is what gameplay looks like, 60 frames per second. I don't see any major tearing or smearing or anything like that. And the colors actually look really good on both TVs. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below, because when it comes to the colors on it, sometimes I like to hear other opinions. All right, so that's gameplay on these TVs so you know what it looks like. Now it's time for some testing on these TVs. We're gonna go over the motion, skin tones, as well as viewing angles and things like that. So let's jump right into it so you can see which TV performs the best, but I think we have a pretty good idea by now. The first thing we're gonna take a look at is motion at 24 frames per second, and both TVs really respond about the same. And keep in mind, 24 frames per second is gonna have more of a jaggedy edge to give you that cinematic look on movies. And now we're gonna switch over to 60 frames per second. And as you can see here, both TVs are very smooth because this is the native signal of the televisions. Now I can't tell the difference from each one, so my conclusion is that both TVs are going to have the same response when it comes to motion. And while we're in the Spears and Muscles disc, we're going to go ahead and check out the skin tones. And keep in mind, both TVs are still in movie mode. Now here's a skin tone test, and if you look at the Q7F, you can see that it looks a lot more natural, and it's because of the quantum dots technology that's built into this television. Now I would say that for the average user, the U8000F is a great TV for what it is, but it's not going to compare as far as the quality of the image that you're going to get out of the Q7F when you compare these TVs side by side. Here's the dirty screen effects on both TVs. I would say you're going to get a little vignetting on both televisions, kind of like in this area. The fact that neither one of these TVs have local dimming zones, I think it's still doing a decent job. But I've seen better and I've seen worse, so it's pretty equal to me and pretty neutral when it comes to this particular test. Now when it comes to upscaling, keep in mind 480p is just a really old technology. Not a lot of people use it. But if you jump up to 720p, what we have here, this is going to be the sweet spot for these televisions. Once I switched over to this resolution, everything looks clean. I don't see any jaggedy edges. So the upscaling on these TVs is doing a good job when it comes to looking at these demos. And I would say that 1080p is going to give you the absolutely best upscaling on these televisions. So if you have a way to play this type of content, I think you're going to be just happy with it. Now here's some 4K footage, and again, one thing you're going to notice is that the U8000F is a lot more cleaner when it comes to the warmness of the picture. And if you want something that looks a little more natural, you can go with the Q7F. So I would say that between these two TVs, with all the demos I did, I still like the Q7F, but if you're on a budget and you want to save a few bucks, the U8000F is definitely a great TV to consider as well. Now, as far as glare, I feel that both TVs have almost the same type of glare level. So no matter which TV you get, you're going to experience the same when it comes to reflection on these televisions. The last thing we do is just check out the viewing angles. So if I go over here, bend at these VA panels, you're going to get some coloration to the side. And if I go to the other side, you can see that coloration right there. If you want to get the QLED technology, I think you're going to be very happy with the Q7F over the U8000F. The 8000 series is good, but you just don't get that pop that you get on the QLED series because this uses that crystal UHD, but it is pretty good, I would say, for a bedroom TV or someone who's just not into television, just want to have something to play on their living room, but they like the Samsung brand. Other than that, just let you know, both TVs do have voice commands. This again has AI technology where it can actually give you like titles and things like that on certain applications like Samsung TV Plus. But other than that, I think the design on the Q7F is better too. The fact you have those feet that can move inwards or outwards, and don't quote me on this, that might not be available on all the sizes. But if it was me looking at these two TVs, I would spend a little bit more money and get the Q7F. Again, that's my opinion. If you guys like my video, make sure you go check out my online community, which is 4ktvchat.com. You can post images, TV problems, as well as more. I hope these videos have been helping you out making the best buying decision for you and your family. And if you want to see the full reviews on these TVs, go check them out right here. Go ahead. I'll wait. Just click on it. Thanks all for watching. I'm Tech Steve, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.